Thank you very much. It's really quite an honor and frankly very moving to be here, to walk into the National Academy of Sciences auditorium and do a presentation about the work of the City Project, and more importantly about efforts to reduce disparities in access to parks and recreation, efforts to reduce disparities in health, efforts to promote equal justice, democracy, and livability for all, which is the mission of the City Project. And the topic, as it was described to me, is about building physical and social environments for physical activity in high-risk communities. What will it take? So I'll focus on that. And we're very proud of this. I just found this out. Today is Thursday. I just found this out Tuesday. Today at the Smithsonian Museum, the Smithsonian Anacostia Museum here in DC, there is an exhibit that includes the work of the City Project. I did not know we were in this exhibit, but it focuses on the same issues that the Institute of Medicine is focusing on from a slightly different perspective, and it does say, Robert Garcia, founding director and counsel of the City Project, suggests an overall goal not only focused on water and green space, but also dedicated to transforming communities through jobs, housing, health, and culture. And the exhibit is about reclaiming the edge, urban waterways, and civic engagement. The photograph there is an example of one of our projects, what is now Rio de Los Angeles State Park at Taylor Yard. Those are the children of the Anahuac Youth Soccer Association playing there. We represented them in the lawsuit to make that park happen and to stop a commercial development there in one of the most park-poor, income-poor communities of color in the state of California. And that's what I'd like to talk about is how you do that, how we do that. And really the purpose is not to talk about our success. This is not a feel-good story about the City Project. It is an effort to reach out to our brothers and sisters in the public health community to show that lawyers perish the thought, practitioners, civil rights attorneys have valuable lessons for you in public health research, as academics, as government officials, as concerned citizens. And some of the accomplishments, Jim Salas says, I'm the king of parks. I don't think so. Some of the accomplishments we've managed to eke out in Southern California and California include passing $10 billion in statewide park bond measures with the overwhelming support of people of color, voters of color. Without the voters of color, those measures would have failed. And the experience in California demonstrates that the environment is not a luxury that people of color and low-income people do not care about and are not willing to pay for. They voted to tax themselves to create a better community. We've created or preserved over 1,000 acres of green space in park-poor, income-poor communities of color in Los Angeles alone. We're greening the LA and the San Gabriel rivers. Many people don't know there's an LA river, even in LA. We're expanding the national recreation areas in the Santa Monica Mountains and working on a new recreation area on the east side of the county in San Gabriel Mountains. We're keeping public beaches open for all, despite efforts by wealthy homeowners to close off public beaches. We have a transit to trails program to take children from inner city communities to mountains, beaches, and parks that are an hour away, but they've never been there because they don't have the resources or the information, or their parents don't have the time to take them. We are also enforcing physical education requirements in public schools, and I'll come back to that. And as chair of the Oversight Committee for the Los Angeles Unified School District, we helped raise $27 billion for Los Angeles public schools to build 130 new schools and modernize existing schools. And that includes the joint use of schools, pools, and parks. So that's a brief overview of what we've done. But the question really is, what will it take? And things fall into our laps like manna from heaven. Yesterday, I'm a little bit disoriented because right now it's like 6 in the morning for me, LA time. Yesterday was Wednesday. I saw this on Facebook, of all places. And Martin Luther King said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And Larry Brilliant, in his commencement address at the Harvard School of Public Health just a few days ago, made these comments. And you are all members of the public health community. Frankly, I had never heard of Larry Brilliant, but he said it so eloquently. The arc of the universe needs your help to bend towards justice. It will not happen on its own. Public health needs you to ensure health for all. Bend that arc. I want you to leap up, to jump up, and grab that arc of history with both hands and yank it down, twist it, and bend it. Bend it towards fairness, bend it towards better health for all, bend it towards justice. I think this is a variation on Jim Salas's active applause. You all in the public health community need to work with us in the civil rights community and bend the arc of justice towards public health for all. I am a civil rights attorney. I make no apology for that fact. I am a litigator. I am a recovering litigator. I served as an assistant United States attorney in the Southern District of New York, first under John Martin and then under Rudy Giuliani. So when we see disparities of the kind that Jim outlined, of the kind that the Institute of Medicine has repeatedly outlined, of the kind that we all know exist, the first thing we think of is, what do the civil rights laws have to say about addressing and alleviating and eliminating health disparities? And this is what we do. And if you don't recall anything else from today's meeting, remember this lesson, that the civil rights laws are a tool for you in the public health community to look at, to use, to consider. And indeed, we are very grateful. George Flores from the California Endowment has given us a grant this year for the City Project to work with Dr. Michael Rodriguez, who's the director of the new UCLA Blum Center on Health and Poverty in Latin America, which includes the diaspora of immigrants in California and the United States. I am one of those immigrants. I was born in Guatemala. I moved to the United States when I was 4 years old. And we are analyzing and will publish an equal justice, equal protection framework to address health disparities. But it is centered on Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and its regulations, and the President's Order on Environmental Justice. It's actually known as the Order on Environmental Justice, but it is really the President's Order on Environmental and Health Justice. There are also parallel state laws, and I'm not going to go into the details here today, but the next time you see a health disparity, give me a call. I'll do the analysis for you. The strategies we have consistently used at the City Project to accomplish the kind of victories that are celebrated at the Smithsonian today are, first of all, community organizing and coalition building. And the coalition building, from our perspective, includes working with academics, working with public health experts on health disparity issues in parks and schools. Second, and I owe this framing of what we do to Jim Salas, we translate research into policy, law, and most importantly, change on the ground. Third, we engage in strategic media campaigns. 4, we engage in policy and legal advocacy outside the courts. And 5, as I said, I am a litigator. When all of the above fails, we will resort to access to justice through the courts. We call it that instead of litigation because most foundations will not fund litigation. Why, I don't know. Access to justice through the courts is a First Amendment right. There are disparities in access to justice through the courts for people of color and low-income people. That is one of the disparities, in my humble opinion, foundations like the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation need to fund. It's for civil rights lawyers to take the research, go to court, and make change. Let me give you an example. a case study of some of the projects we've worked on. I grew up in LA. I know there's not enough places for parks in underserved communities in Los Angeles, but as lawyers, we have to prove what we all know is true. This is a map originally presented by the Olmsted brothers in 1930, the sons of Frederick Law Olmsted, who created the field of landscape architecture. And the report was called Parks, Playgrounds, and Beaches for the Los Angeles Region. And it went nowhere. It was published in 1930 at the height of the Great Depression, so it sat on a shelf for over 60 years. We took a look at the same issues. This is the fundamental reality in Los Angeles. Children of color living in poverty with no access to a car have the worst access to parks, the worst access to schools with 5 acres or more of playing fields. They have the highest levels of childhood obesity. They are the most at risk for gangs, crime, drugs, and violence. So we target our efforts in those red hotspots. The disparities in access to parks and recreation and to school fields are not an accident of unplanned growth. They are a continuing history and pattern of discrimination in land use, housing, federally subsidized mortgages. This is an image, I'm told, in Hollywood around the 1940s. Japs keep moving. This is a white man's neighborhood. And understanding that history, people, when we talk about this history, people say, Robert, why are you so confrontational? Why do you have to dredge up the past? The past is not the past. We are living with this legacy today. So this was the City Project's flagship project. I started the City Project in 2000 because this work needed to be done and nobody else was willing to do it. 40-acre site in downtown Los Angeles. The City of LA and Majestic Realty, one of the wealthiest developers in the nation, were proposing putting 40 acres of warehouses on this site with no appropriate environmental review and without considering the impact on people of color, low-income people, with virtually no community input. We stopped that in favor of what is now Los Angeles State Historic Park. Los Angeles Times called that victory a heroic monument and a symbol of hope. A great opening sentence on the front page of the LA Times about how we did that on a deserted rail yard north of Chinatown. One of Los Angeles' most powerful and tenacious real estate developers, Ed Roski Jr., met his match. And the article talked about how we organized a civil rights challenge that claimed the project was the result of discriminatory land use policies that had long deprived minority neighborhoods of parks. We have published our analysis for 9 counties of Southern California, healthy parks, schools, and communities. It's available on our website. If you go to the website and click on Map Justice, you can download that report there and individual reports for 6 counties, including the Title VI Civil Rights Analysis. We are very proud of the fact that the National Park Service has catapulted our work to the national level through their strategic action for Healthy Parks, Healthy People US. They explicitly say, 1, there are disparities in access to parks. 2, this is a health issue and health disparities, and they define health using the WHO definition of health, of complete physical, social, and mental well-being. And 3, they say park agencies have an obligation to address these disparities. Similarly, only about a month or 2 ago, the National Park Service published a study recommending a national recreation area in the San Gabriels, along with a national recreation area in the Santa Monica Mountains. And they explicitly cite our work, cite our maps, cite the civil rights laws that I mentioned. So again, it's no longer just me saying this, because I'm an attorney, I speak out of both sides of my mouth. But when the National Park Service says this is the law and this is what park agencies need to do to address health and park disparities, that makes a huge difference. We'd like to thank the Institute of Medicine. They published a week ago, educating the student body on physical activity and physical education in school. We've gone through quickly virtually every recommendation in that report is something the city project has been doing for 13 years. Our efforts to enforce physical education laws in the Los Angeles Unified School District, Dr. Robert Ross of the endowment has called a best practice example for districts across the state to provide a quality education for the children of California. My time is up. Let me just finish with 2 slides. The values at stake in the work we do in parks and schools. It's not just about parks. It's not just about schools. It's not just about education, as important as those things are. It's first of all about human health and development of youth. Second, economic vitality, including green jobs in parks and schools. Third, conservation values, the mainstream environmental values, and we work with mainstream environmentalists and alliances. Fourth, culture, heritage, and spirituality. And finally, underlying all those values is equal justice, democracy, and livability for all. And I spend a lot of my time addressing the question, how are parks and schools and physical education and physical activity civil rights issues? This is my final slide. President Obama, the first black president in the United States, dedicated the Cesar Chavez National Monument last October. It is the first national monument in the United States honoring a Latino born after the 1700s. It is part of the National Park Service. It is a unit of the National Park Service. That image captures how parks, green space, physical activity, physical education, disparities are human health issues and civil rights issues. So please, when you're doing your publications and your research, remember the civil rights community is here to bend the arc of justice towards health for all with you. Thank you.